Yes, sir.
That's not filming, oh.
It is, yeah.
Well, you can turn it off.
You cannot film you until you
have not got my permission to film me in this meeting.
I'm afraid I have.
I'm afraid you do.
I'm afraid I have.
You have not got my permission.
Mr. Chairman, we have permission.
I'm not giving you my permission to film me in this meeting. So turn it off.
Talk to the chairman, please.
I'm talking to you.
All right. Will you
Don't be abusive to me, mate.
Right, Gary, just a minute.
Turn that off.
I'm not turning it off.
Listen, can you actually refer to the chairman? I'm just asking them to refer to the chairman.
Claire, you're the officer in this room. Am I allowed to video these
and record
proceedings
without? Oh, come on, Claire.
Are you allowed to record?
Yeah, of course you are.
I cannot say off the top of my head whether it's
well,
who's
got a device for confirming on your regulations?
Don't look so smugly at me.
Sorry?
I'm telling you, you're not filming me, whether you've got permission or not. You're not doing
Well, you will have to leave the meeting then if you don't want to be videoed. Sorry?
I will leave the meeting.
Well, that's up to you. That's totally up to
I
you.
will give you permission to film me.
Bernie, I don't want you to.
Guys, please
Address the chairman.
Calm it down, please.
Yeah.
Thank you. Claire is just checking the exact wording because we're unsure.
Right. Well,
we know that
I'm sticking by it.
That's fine, Bernie.
If you want to, just sit down.
Look, you know I don't like confrontation. Bernie, I'm sorry that if you don't want to be.
What's the purpose of this?
All I'm going to say
What is the purpose? Why do you want to do this?
Why?
Because we're entitled to.
Well,
don't talk nonsense. You've got to have a reason.
Well, because
we've got lots of reasons, Bernie.
Lots
of reasons.
Well, tell us what the reasons are then.
The same reasons I challenge your accounts because they're incorrect.
So
Because
you
your procedures.
Well,
yes, because we've just given you an example before this meeting.
Excuse me.
Right.
Well, he's asking me a question.
Bernie, don't ask any questions.
No. Shut up.
That's clear.
Sorry?
I know that recording can happen, but I'm honestly not certain about videoing.
Well, he's not videoing me, that's a certain. And that's out of principle. Because I'm not giving him, it's like anyone else in the street. You can't just go up and take a photograph of
We're not in the street, we're in a public meeting of the parish council.
I can understand why potentially, because I wouldn't like to be filmed, but the fact is that we can actually film. We could actually ask the parish council to actually
You won't
provide.
give us good reason why you want to.
I don't need to.
We can't find the definition of this.
I can't answer it off the top of my head.
Because we had this when we recorded the meeting. We were told that it was actually illegal under some transparency law, which it wasn't. And we confirmed.
Actually, what was illegal was you were recording it without anyone being aware of it.
It's not illegal, I'm afraid it isn't.
Not.
There's no requirement to inform you in advance. In fact, if you read the guidance, you'll find the assumption is...
Sorry. No.
Well,
I don't know.
I'll look at it on transparency.
If you look at the minutes.
Bernie, can we check for the next one?
Yes.
I do apologise.
But I'm not sitting.
So, Bernie, I'm sorry.
Be quiet.
Well, I am sorry. If he wants to leave,
I'm told you, and I'm not going to tell you again.
that's
No,
that's
fine. Bernie, I do apologise.
It's not you that's using the camera.
No.
Good night, all.
Bernie, we'll check it out for you after the meeting. Thank you.
Wish we'd put bits in. I never thought about it. I know, well, I wish I had. But it would have saved Ben looking and being...
You do appreciate we've all got the same feeling?
No, yeah, I mean, we do.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do, honestly, we do. Because I wouldn't
It's
like...
not-
Do you want me to respond? No. Mr. May doesn't want me to respond to you. No, he doesn't want me to respond.
Yes, back to the agenda, please. Apologies for absence, Tony Hood. And has anyone heard from Eileen? And Bernie?
I haven't heard from Eileen actually.
No, I haven't. Has anyone seen Eileen?
Well, she's not going to be away.
Yeah, she's going on holiday. She might have told, she might have told you
Apologies.
last time.
The last time.
declarations of interest?
Development programme.
Thank you. Which is item 13, I believe.
Yeah.
Yep. Do we have any other declarations of interest at this point? No? Thank you. Okay. Item 3, to approve and confirm the minutes of the meeting held on the 27th of June. You've all had copies of these minutes. Is everybody, all the parish councillors, happy with these minutes, or do they recommend any changes?
As agreed.
Okay. Everyone happy? Can I have a show of hands for acceptance? Thank you. Then come to approve and confirm the minutes of the meeting held up on the 1st of July. Again, everyone has seen a set of these minutes. Parish councillors, can I ask for your, do you agree with them?
May I comment that we have had a comment about 44A. That I haven't put the full, and I'm looking at my notes, there is a comment that I haven't included, which was about the response sent in error by Councillor Sauter, and our then comments on that. Do you want me to amend something and recirculate them, or do you want to rewrite? Do you want to put something now, or do you want to accept without it? Basically, what happened was the resident read out part of the emails that have been sent. They asked what a strategy meeting was, what was meant by the word strategy meeting, when these were held, and I had clarified that I believe that what was meant by strategy meeting and to shut the matter down fully was that we were to fully explore and respond to the issues that have been raised, and that's what we would do in due course. So, do you want me to, I mean, I don't know whether you want me to put something in.
Would the councillors prefer that that comment is put in?
This has been communicated to the recipients directly.
It has, but it's not in the minutes that we've responded in that way. Do you want me to put something in?
What is everyone's view on this?
I'm happy to put that it was my email, and I am happy that I answer it in public.
You did answer it in public.
I will, and a written one I will put as a matter of record.
Would it be acceptable for me to amend that bit and recirculate them? I just feel like we need to make sure that everybody's read what I'm saying.
Yeah, precisely.
So we include what I said and the fuller meaning.
Yes, because
Can I recirculate them?
Thank you.
May I also say that there was 2 questions that I asked, well, I asked 3 questions, but it was 2 questions that were unanswered. You have omitted the first question, but question 2 and question 3 were the ones that were unanswered.
I've lost track.
So have I, but at this point, no, we're just talking about the specific item.
If you think there's things that need to be included, if you could send me an email with them,
I was on the understanding that I had actually given you a copy of those, but I can give you a copy of them again.
and I'll say that one was answered in this. I'll look at that and put it in the minutes to reflect that was discussed at the last meeting.
And that will be circulated.
Yeah.
Okay. Everyone happy with that?
Yeah.
Thank you. Item 5. Public questions. Do we
Yes,
have any public questions?
we do. The general data protection policy.
Point of order,
Has
Mr. Chairman.
Sorry?
Point of order on the agenda.
Are they?
The questions given. The new standing orders require that public questions pertain to what's on the agenda.
Do these questions pertain to what is on the agenda?
What are you asking us for?
You're asking questions, Gary, stop.
sorry.
No.
It's-
He's asked about your standing orders. Public questions are simply public questions. They don't have to be on your agenda items. The public can come to a parish council meeting to ask any question they so choose. Even says that, Lindsay, on your own website.
Surely the meeting is held within the terms of the standing orders.
Yes, and our standing orders.
Are
say
they-
that.
Are these
If the person asking the question wants it to go on the agenda for the next meeting, fine, that is allowed.
So can I have just clarification? Are those these are new standing orders,
These were standing orders that were adopted a little while ago.
and are those new standing orders actually on your website?
We have a draft, they're not in full yet. But I think that's.
If there's a draft version, that's fine. So they're on the website in draft. Yes, they're on the website in draft form.
So could we take it from that then all the questions we're asked you're actually going to answer in the next parish council meeting? Is that how it works now?
Depends on the
Public?
question, doesn't it?
Well, I don't know.
Okay, well,
But can
actually,
we ask the question
all
then?
right, well, right. So we'll we'll start from scratch. So the general data protection policy. Actually, so the privacy notice and general privacy notice that you actually put up last. Is that your general data protection policy, or are you having a general data protection policy, regulatory policy?
We are having.
You put up privacy, like a privacy notice and a general privacy notice. Is that your general data protection policy?
We will be adopting the documents which are suggested in the National Association of Local Council General Data Protection Regulation Toolkit.
We've agreed with GDPR.
Yes,
Is that, no, that's the privacy notices, but that's, yes.
that was GDPR, isn't it?
Yes, the privacy notices, because it says how we handle data. We will also then have to adopt a subject access request, which is a separate, things like more of a freedom of information thing.
Okay, right. So the privacy notices and the general privacy notices, that is your GDPR policy.
Yes.
So where it says the Neighbourhood Plan Steering Group is on the same par as Felton Parish Council and Newton and Swollen Parish Council, that we're at that same level. So which one of the three new councillors will be legally responsible for the data protection of the Neighbourhood Plan Group?
Everybody that is involved in handling data on behalf of the council is required to handle it in a compliant way, and at the end of the day, I believe that the responsibility comes. There was a query. I believe that now it's querying whether with the ICO whether a data control officer is, that's one of the issues that was raised, wasn't it?
Yes.
Data protection officer, whether the data protection officer is required or not, and if they are required, then that was one of the things that I think now I'm trying to clear up, but it's something that we can look at and.
Because I think the regulations that I looked at, it was more in terms of the parish council level that actually they were, I can't remember the term, but not exempt, but it was dealing, the protection policy at that higher level was for the likes of NCCs and what have you, and the lower one you weren't, so you didn't need a person, appoint a person.
Yes. I mean,
Well, these are the questions that have been raised. So
yes, with now.
So that's ongoing, it's pending.
It's ongoing.
Right, okay, that's fine. Well, so my next question, if it's not on the agenda, sorry then I can't ask the question unless that's on the agenda. So
No, what are you on about?
well,
We can ask any question we like, Lee. It's up to them whether they answer.
all right, okay, right. So you had an emergency
You can
gen-
still ask the question, but we don't have to answer it.
Yeah, I agree, totally.
Right, fine. So the AGM that you had to consider the rights along the access along Rec Lane, Why did the Parish Council exclude the public from this meeting, given that the published agenda does not infer any confidential element? And then the second, there's a second part which I'll wait till you've written that bit.
Okay. Second part is?
If there is a confidential element, we're still at, what does it refer to, given that all access arrangements are in the public domain? Obviously you don't need to go into detail, but if there is a confidential element, then it needs to be published on the notes.
Thank you.
You had an unpublished parish council meeting at the village hall prior to the start of your EGM. What time?
No, we didn't.
Well,
sorry,
we're asking the question. You can answer at your leisure.
What time was the first meeting held at the village hall?
Next question.
Well, I'm sorry, I'm watching Claire, so she's writing. I was just waiting for her.
Okay.
What was discussed? Where is the published agenda? Right. At last month's July's meeting, you passed a resolution on all groups, and within that it was you have to appoint 3 councillors to each group. So who is being appointed to the Felton Parish Neighbourhood Plan group? And urgent matters at July group, the July meeting, you passed a resolution to give Fair Committee and thereby stallholders car access to Recreation Lane. Sort of what legal right did the Parish Council have to ignore the law on driving on a pro footpath and thereby encourage others to do so? And also within that, why did you vote on an urgent item not published on the agenda when you're only allowed to discuss such items? You're not allowed to actually vote on an item in an urgent item. Actually, this one I can ask in the meeting because it's about the bus shelter. Councillor Forster produced costs for rebuilding the demolished, uninsured bus shelter at the July meeting, and Councillor Thornton supported the rebuild in stone rather than of plastic. Why has the clerk just met NCC to discuss procuring a replacement, presumably in plastic? Like I say, because that one is on the agenda, that one could be answered today. Is that correct? Thank you.
Comes under public questions. You need to later agenda route.
What's answering anyway?
So I met with a lady from NCC Procurement. As you know, Bernie had done some specification work for us with the damaged shelter, and we had hoped that NCC would be able to give us some guidance about who might be suitable suppliers for rebuilding, because we've really been struggling. We had obviously obtained a couple of quote, Stuart Arkle and Sons had volunteered a rebuild estimate, and I had also previously obtained the roof estimates, so they had I'd asked them, they would have had to bring in effectively subcontractor to do the stonework, because they weren't. So we were at a point where really I had asked NCC for some guidance on taking that forward. I met with procurement, who have they really were speaking to me about the process of procurement at NCC and giving us guidance. So it was actually a really helpful meeting. She's given me a template suite of documents which I could adapt then to take forward for our procurement issues, which will hopefully assist with bus shelter, but then also will help with any of these sorts of jobs going forward and useful for the contracts working group. So what she's advised us to do in terms of procedure for procurement was to, we've obviously got we've only done specification, we had a rough invitation to tender drafted by him. She has also given, well, she sent it to me and I've had a quick look at it, but I need to have a proper look at it. Almost like an assessment policy that we can then apply. So what we would do is we set our specification, we request, the invitation to tender asks for companies to submit a method of work. Is it a works method of works? Yeah. A method of works, which would then be assessed against the specification by either by the full parish council or by a nominated group, and scored. Separately, the price is submitted effectively separately, so that scoring committee don't see the price when they're looking at how well it matches the qualification, the specification. And then she's got a spreadsheet which effectively does the work for you, so you put in your scores and then it tells you which is the winning contractor. So it takes almost a personal decision out in terms of once you've assessed the specification against the methodology that they're suggesting, that basically scores your quality, and then pricing is a separate, and you have to then decide the balance. So
the weighting on each.
She says usually most of the contracts she would see are usually 60% quality, 40% price, but she says it depends on the importance of price on any given project. So you may decide that effectively, since the stone bus shelter is, 3 walls, you may decide it's not a hugely complex project, and then you could scale down the quality side, rating against price, and increase your price percentage to get basically you could take the decision that the quality isn't going to be hugely different, and therefore
price
becomes more important. So as soon as you take price above 50%, the lowest quote is going to win on the algorithms, basically.
Okay.
So she's given me all of that stuff. She's given me she's done bus shelters before, so she said she would, they don't have, Bernie, I think, had suggested that they might have, and I think they used to have a list of approved suppliers. They no longer have that because they're required to go out. There's so many tenders now that they just have an open invitation system. So they post, it's almost like check and trade, they post their jobs on the council system, and they get people coming in and offering. So she said we could do that.
Could we piggyback on that?
We could, and she says we could do that in terms of we could decide to just have an open one. I think we could do it through their system if we wanted to. She said obviously with it, the smaller the job, the less that successful that method is going to be, because you're not going to get people necessarily bidding on something very small like volunteering, whereas you might have more like approaching people that you know in the village. But when you send out the invitation to tender, you basically tell them what your assessment criteria is, so that, and she's given me a template for that as well. So she said if we get something done, sent out as soon as possible, she would suggest 3 or 4 weeks for people to come back in, because that's realistic given that they would probably have to come and look at it. And then the contract working groups could be authorised to do that scoring, and then the winning quote could be passed through the council.
Okay, thank you. And she did offer to actually
She
work
did say,
with
yes,
you
thank you.
through the
She
first
did
one.
say, yeah, she said that if we wanted her help, she's more than happy to come out and help us more with it. So she said if we want her to take us through the first assessment. So This is all to do, I mean, we did say we would also price a plastic one for comparison. Again, I guess we would have to do the specification for the potential, you would use the same process, you would say the purchase plus the, what your specification was for installing it. And again, you could then, and you could use this process, she says, obviously this process is then applicable to any other contracts to take forward, so obviously we need to go through our other contracts that we've talked about, the landscaping one being re-tendered, etc. And you would just use the same system and you give people a specification and an assessment criteria. Although it hasn't moved us forward in terms of, I haven't got a list of people that they use, which I think was what we thought they may be able to help us with.
That's what we thought we'd get originally.
We've got a clearer way forward, I think, to then send that out and manage it out, and
which makes a lot of sense.
And I feel happy that that process is more defined now, because I think beforehand I did feel like I was, I said to her, I just feel like I'm plucking names from Google, and she said, you can, at the end of the day, do a search and you can choose how many people you want to send it out to locally. You could say, you need 3, you could just say, well, I know these people are going to give me estimates, so I'm only going to send it out to 3, or she says, if you feel like you need a wider pool, you can send it out to more people.
Okay, that's great, thank you very much.
So, since it was a public question, did the parish council have a preference to whether it's going to be a stone-built one or is it a preference for plastic? Bearing in mind, obviously, the stone-built ones are sort of traditional all-day one kind of things and look nicer and possibly more sustainable than plastic ones. I mean, because you have a basic idea of how much the plastic ones are, I know that, but...
What this was decided?
I think it was a preference for stone, I suppose it might depend on
It depends on price at the end of the day, but we did express a preference for stone.
I think this process is going to dictate
Yes.
it now.
That will help us, that will guide us through it.
And do we want to set a percentage, do you want to set a ratio between quality? It's just picky, I mean, she said you could just have 50-50 or you could have 60-40, or you can weight it however you like. If it was a job.
Let's kick things off.
I think it was only considered another plastic one because the plastic one on the other side of the road.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
It would match that.
It would match that one, like that, yeah. But, yeah. Right, thank you for that question.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you. Item 6, review of ongoing matters.
So yeah, as I explained when I sent this out, it was just more, I thought it would hopefully make things clearer for people to be able to see a snapshot. Do you need what you see? Do you got it? Yes, I thought it would just hopefully make it clearer for people to see at a glance where we were, and then also in terms of the minutes, it's not me like looking through the minutes trying to, there's a snapshot of where we are on any particular item. You can add things to there and take them off a bit.
It's just updated, it's an easier way of keeping track.
So we'll try it and see how it goes. I don't know how it will incorporate the minutes. I guess decisions will go into the minutes and just an update on here as a position.
That makes sense.
Do you want to go?
Are you going to go through everyone, or are you just going to go through the ones
I've
the
got
updates
some
on?
with updates, yeah. So there's no further forward. I have been chasing Trevor Thorne, so you leave all of those ones for them. I think really I'm at a point where I'm going to have to write a letter to say we need some sort of answer on the ones with him. Road repairs at the top end of Felton at the site of the bus fire. They were down to be on the 23rd of August, didn't be done, so it's been rescheduled for the 21st of October. Unfortunately, with all of the bad weather we've had and the heavy rain, some of the long-term programme, is it long-term? Local transport, what's it, LTP? Local transport plans schemes had lost days due to heavy rain, and they had to obviously be caught up and carried on. So what they did is they've basically taken the one-day low-priority projects out of the schedule and put them back at the end.
Okay.
So there'll be new road closure notices near the time, but it's still on the list.
But we've got no date.
21st of October.
21st of October.
The street lighting project, again I've chased for an update. I did the response I'd had from County Council was that they are reviewing all of the issues listed with Gallagher Try, and they will update us in due course. I haven't really had anything else on that first page. The bottom one, I'm just busy, the dog bin.
Surgery, transfer of land.
The solicitor is doing a report, and I did see that he was emailing the other side about some things, so I think it's in progress. I will chase again.
Yeah, because we really need a final date for that.
Yeah. The dog bin, that was a report that we had in from it had come via County Council. A member of the public had reported the dog bin has been damaged and have been damaged, just need to be replaced. County Council have asked if we can now replace, rather than with specific dog waste bins, that we just put a general purpose bin, and then it will get emptied as part of the normal schedule.
Whereabouts is this dog bin?
That's on the Riverside, at top of it, it's beside the War Memorial, isn't it? Riverside.
No, it's
Because it is up in there.
there's the one next.
Up
It's
in
the
there.
one next to the
It's
power box
yeah.
for the sewage,
Oh yes, yeah.
just in front of the lodge.
So we would end up
It's
with
a
an
red one
additional
at the
bin
minute.
there. Just nicely.
Sorry.
Just nicely. Sitting there. The same position with the waste bins by Bellway. I know that Fiona had reported that that one's overflowing again. They've taken the temporary ones down. So Bellway, I reported it to Bellway and County Council. Bellway have obviously been removed the...
They've removed their own bins,
Their
but were never meant to be dog bins.
No. So we're still just... I mean, I think really it's something that needs to be added to the list of new things to get, because clearly there's a need for a bin there if they're always overflowing.
The new
Yeah.
dog bin there.
There would be no additional
Well, the
charge.
normal bin rather than the dog bin,
Well, no.
because they're larger anyway,
Yeah.
so they can take all the refuse and everything
I mean,
else.
there were a few bins not emptied the other day, I think with the bank holiday, but they came down round on Friday and emptied them. I think.
I think there's a lot more dogs in the village as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm.
But why they can't take that at home if the bins are over?
Oh, yeah.
I don't know.
Quite
Or
exactly.
carry it to next week.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I've spoken to County Council, there will be no additional charge for emptying. Bus timetables, I had an update, but it's nothing exciting. There's no expected solution imminently, because he still hasn't got whatever it is, the resourcing is internally to deal with it. So I think we just need to keep an eye on it and check that they are being updated in due course. Because it'll be, it's November usually they're doing when do the bus timetables change about this time of year, don't they, sometimes?
Does it change when the clocks change those timetables? Is it about then?
It's sometimes May or November that it
I think
changes.
it might be November.
Right.
It's around then, isn't it?
Yeah,
So
but it
it's
doesn't
just to
always
keep an eye on,
change.
just to check that it doesn't.
They don't always change them.
The empty property days in Avenue, we had a successful meeting and got him to take all his fly tipping away and cut down the trees. That's happened. I haven't had any further update. I did chase the contractor, the project manager, to ask for how the tender process was gone, and I'll chase that again.
Because people are very irate about
Mhm.
empty properties when there's such a shortage.
It's another one.
I so believe, yes.
That's been happening about 2 months.
Just
How long did you think they have? When I come to do that house, or come in to do the other ones? Because we've got another social housing one standing out.
Does that one need a refurbishment as well?
No, it's already had some work.
I don't know
Where's which one's that one?
what they actually did.
And they put a new kitchen in,
Mm.
as well as that one.
So it seems unusual that it's been empty for 2 months. If that level of work was already carried out, just seemed a little bit odd.
So I'll ask why there's an empty property. Do you know
Yeah.
what number it is? You do? Which road is it on?
Number
It's
9.
on the other side of the school.
On Dave's Nap.
What number 9?
One.
I'm not going to put you on the spot. It's a Dave's Avenue though.
I think it's the 6th one long, but it's odd number as an even number, so I'm not sure.
But it's on Dave's family.
Yeah.
So no further real update over the weekend. We'll have that holiday. as I say, I'm just keeping chasing on things, but I haven't had very many responses. I think there's a lot of, we're getting quite a few out of offices where I have chased people, but that should get better now. We're back in September.
Yeah.
So I'll just keep chasing on those.
But then that's second open, which have you got for Fiona? The
Footpaths.
yes.
They're quite large, you said that's all right.
Yeah.
Drop them in tomorrow, Fiona.
Thank you.
Any others on that list?
I don't know, nothing else exciting for me. But if we go through and there's anything that you think needs to be moved onto the list, then I can do it. Just try to pull out as much stuff. Yeah.
Item 7, report by County Councillor. Do we have anything from Trevor?
No. No, I just told I've sent him several emails and several voicemails, and I've been writing a letter in the county hall. Just asked for a response now because
We haven't had one.
I invited him tonight.
I did say the other day, but I forgot to chase them. Parish representations at meetings, I don't think there were. Oh, could do, yes. Sorry, there was a brief meeting with Rob Murphin, Director of Planning, where he had volunteered to come around as part of his policies and to come around the parishes and just have a general chat about planning. And his role, as he expressed, was really to help us get the best out of the planning system, not to help us object to things or anything else, but to get the best out of the planning system.
And to that, and just you mentioned about the courses.
Yes, he said that what he's going to do is do a series of course or planning presentations which will be tied into work with other parish councils. It'll take approximately 2 hours, be done in an evening or a weekend, and the idea is to have groups of 4 or 5 parish councils together so we can get the best benefit of that. He also talked a little bit about a community infrastructure levy, which is above the S106 agreement. The way that this system can work is that the parish council could get 15% of the money. So
what do you say about infrastructure money in 106? Okay.
So there's a community infrastructure levy available which works above the S106 agreement. In addition to, depending how this is done, the PC can actually get 15% of that money. We didn't go into the details at this point.
No,
it was just an idea. But what was interesting was if a neighbourhood plan was in place, the parish council could get up to 25% of that money. He did mention that the local plan will be available for examination in public, I think the 8th of October.
Yeah, so we've got some dates that it's being rolled out. There's quite a lot of opportunities to inspect it at County Hall, should you wish to.
We briefly discussed the surgery. I think
Just briefly discussed ongoing issues.
and that was it. And so it was a relatively quick meeting.
So what date was that meeting?
Friday the 23rd.
Friday the 23rd.
Friday the 23rd.
There was no other parish representations for meetings.
We had a very brief.
This is the meeting again. Before the AGM.
No, that was the meeting.
Oh, that's right, yes. No, not a problem at all. Not a problem at all. Right, okay. No other parish representation. Item 8, standing item services. Anything from PC Brimble?
No, and I seem to be getting out. I think it's his mailbox that was an issue. So I've sent a message to his sergeant to say, could there be a...
Yes, because we really do need to know what's
So
going
when
on.
I mean, he did originally had got in touch with me, you know, for the first few meetings, and then I think now he's not getting my requests because he's with me in the box.
Okay. Item 9, Neighbourhood Plan.
Right, so the neighbourhood plan, there's a few issues that need to be resolved to sort of clear way to move things forward. We've already talked about GDPR a little bit, and that touches on the neighbourhood plan, because potentially they would be collating some personal data if people are signing up to receive updates, or if people are wishing to be added to, you know, mailing lists for involvement or for groups. And it might also be that that there's a need to collect, I suppose, survey information, that sort of thing, going forward. So there is a general data protection point. We've obviously got our general privacy notices in place, which would apply to any of our committees and subcommittees. Setting out how we would handle, what kind of data we might handle, and how that would be handled. I think that covers the main concerns. There's possibly a need to do an assessment checklist. You can do data protection impact assessments, and I am looking through that to see whether that's something that we would need to do. But I think it's going to come down to depending on what kind of data is being handled, so that may become more clear.
Once we know the data.
In terms of at the moment, I think as long as emails are stored by, you know, if mailing lists are controlled by myself on behalf of the neighbourhood plan, I think that would satisfy that immediate issue. Because then I could, you know, blind copy emails out if once we start building up a mailing list, for lack of a better description. So there's the data protection issue. The website at the moment, there is a website. We obviously, one of the requirements for the neighbourhood plan is that you publish everything. That everything's published and available for public to review, and there's requirements about what might need to be published as we go on. The County Council link officer had recommended that the best way to do that is to have a website. Alan Culprit has set one up provisionally and has paid for that for the time being and has control of that. He's prepared to sign over control to make me an admin of it, basically, so that I would have control of the website. We could potentially just use our own website. However, it's not ideal because to get neighbourhood plan stuff from our website, you would effectively go onto the documents page and then tab on the right hand, there's like an index of different types of document. You would have to select neighbourhood plan and then it would bring up a list. It's not really, there's no sort of interface that would be for the neighbourhood plan, like there would be a page dedicated to it. So it's not because our website is just a simple website for parish council requirements. So I think probably the other website is a much better option. So as long as everybody is happy for me to.
What sort of protection or what sort of training is Alan Culprit got if he also has access to the website? If he set it up, he presumably has total access. So it comes down to how.
I think he was. He did say that he could hand it over entirely. I think, but I don't know. We could check that. But I mean, we could. That's maybe something that I need to clarify with. Okay.
It is because he isn't a councillor, so it's just if he has access to the data.
Yeah. I mean, I think. I don't think there will be data stored. I don't imagine there will be data stored on the website other than documents that the neighbourhood plan was producing
and other email addresses if people were sending stuff in.
I think that's where we said that we possibly wouldn't have that. We would, I mean, the option, having looked at all of the options, I think probably the easiest way forward is for me to set up a secondary parish council email address dedicated to the neighbourhood plan that I would then could put that email address on the website and use it, so it would be, you know, Felton Neighbourhood Plan at Gmail, and it could be run alongside. And then, because access to that could be granted as and when to anybody that needed it potentially. And I think if a need for somebody else to have access arose, it could be then considered at that point who needed access.
Yeah. Did you say new websites could need paying for?
Yes, and I've got one announced somewhere.
So we should deal with that.
We have had them before. It was sent round a while ago when he was proposing to do it, and then we weren't sure whether they were one-off or annual amounts. And he has replied. Let me just see if I can see that for you.
Normally there's an annual charge for it.
Yeah, there was one. So they're both annual invoices, he says, for the duration of the project, and they are £48 is for the domain name and the website, and the other one is it was a smaller amount.
Do you know what it's for?
Not now, we put them on the spot, that's what has to.
Because the horse, is it the hosting?
Oh yeah, so the domain name, 99 pence a year, and then the website hosting is £48, so it's going to be £48.99 in total.
Put this as a resolution for the next meeting.
Yes, to do it.
So website, email, GDPR. Then we come to the issue with the working groups policy as adopted at the July meeting. Working group, yeah. So any groups that are set up by the parish council either are a subcommittee or they are an advisory committee. We're calling them working groups, but the advisory committee is under a particular section that says you can set up groups to advise the parish council, and that's what effectively what our steering group is. I think I've spoken to Stephen Rickett at now about this issue because it was getting a bit, the water was being a bit muddied, and I just didn't know really the best way to resolve it. To my mind, and he was minded to agree with me on this, the working group's policy is effectively a default position unless other terms
Or
are
agreed for a
agreed
specific
to
thing.
say, to take it out. I mean, it doesn't have, my feeling is that you don't have to apply that with a uniform rule to all working groups, but I think a decision needs to be taken to disapply it. If you see what I mean.
Yes, we should
Yeah.
put it on paper.
Yeah. So potentially we could resolve, if it's needed to be done, we could resolve to effectively, the cleanest way to probably do it is to just re-adopt the terms of reference for the neighbourhood planning steering group. I know there's been concern that that would be undoing a resolution. Again, I don't think that's a problem because our standing orders say that a resolution shall not be reversed within 6 months except by special motion, etc. And I spoke about this point to Stephen Rickett and saying, would you consider us to be reversing a resolution if we were to say that these terms didn't apply? And he said no, he would consider reversing the resolution to be reversing the entire work, to basically cancel the working group's policy in its entirety. We are effectively doing a new resolution to say it doesn't apply to this particular group. If there's any concern from the council that that is an area, where there's grey water, we could suspend that particular standing order for the purpose of this resolution. That doesn't require written notice at this meeting. And we can also appoint a committee or working group and write their terms of reference. And again, it doesn't require written notice. So we could do both of those things tonight. And so my suggestion would be, in order to make sure we've definitely covered ourselves, I would say disapply the previous resolutions one. I don't think we need to, but if, why, you know, why not?
Yeah.
Then appoint the terms of reference for the neighbourhood plan to effectively take them out of the working group's policy. And Steve, I've talked all that through with Stephen, and he was minded that that would be an acceptable route forward.
What is everyone's view on that?
I think it's been well checked with Steve that
No.
person that feels like not covered.
So who is making any decisions? I'm just trying to
No,
clarify.
no, it's fine.
That's all. If there's a resolution to spend money, for instance, who's saying?
I don't think they can I don't think they can take a decision to spend money.
They have to come to the parish council.
I don't think
I would want to remind myself just what the terms of the steering group are.
I can't remember what they were now.
do you want me to put that on the agenda?
Yeah, I think send the information around, and then we'll have it as a specific item.
We can.
In the meantime, so that the neighbourhood plan can move forward, do you want to appoint some temporary councillors to attend the next meeting, or do you want to
No, that would be we'd have to appoint 3 councillors to attend the next meeting.
just because otherwise I feel like that we're saying that they can't move forward until that
When is the next meeting?
to be decided. We've just been asked for availability.
I think that in order to move things forward, we have to appoint temporary ones for the next meeting.
Yes.
But we have to be given sufficient notice that people can actually make the meeting.
Well, that's a manual availability thing you can.
And then we put it on the agenda for the next one to defer it. Do we have any volunteers? We need 3 people.
Yeah, I'll put myself.
And Barbara. Okay.
Can I have just everybody happy with that?
Does everyone agree with that as a temporary solution?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Thank you.
And I think in terms of financial decisions, etc., I don't think that that's, I think that those are decisions, I don't believe that they can be delegated.
No, well, that's what we've talked about, isn't it? Okay.
So it might be that we then, we could potentially come up with an arrangement with where a subgroup of councillors, if those 3 decided to stay on longer term, that they could maybe have delegated authority.
We'll cover that when we need to.
Exactly.
Anything else on the neighbourhood plan?
I don't think so.
No.
Already got something.
Item 10, planning. Planning decisions. Well, there's nothing else on there, is there?
Just the one, I just want to draw your attention to the third of those, the BT proposal. We've had a letter, so this is a letter from, I'm just about to circulate it because I thought actually it would be helpful for people to read it. It was from Robert Murphy. The County Council is seeking our review on the proposed closure of the BT box at the top end of Main Street. BT are undertaking, so it's not from NCC, it's from BT. BT are currently undertaking a programme of proposed removals of public payphones. The above payphone has been identified as having a very low usage level and therefore has been identified for removal under full consultation. There's apparently notice at the payphone displayed to ensure the community are informed. The County Council is the relevant public body which has to provide which has to gather information to make an informed decision, so they seek the view of the local community. They will then, County Council will then look at who lives in the area. Is it predominantly private rental or council housing, with perhaps lower income residents without access to other telephones? Number of household density, emergency calls in those areas where there is limited or low public signal, and general mobile phone coverage. So it's for us to put forward.
Because we've got that defibrillator thing on the wall. But what if we can't get a signal? We need.
There is
So-
some sort of religion. You know, I
Which is
don't think
terrible.
a can't signal on a mobile.
I think the signal is still bad enough to merit having a.
Yes,
There's quite a lot of.
on the wall.
You know, I was on one phone network and got signal at the rec field, but not at my house, and I've swapped, and now I get signal the opposite way around. So I don't think it's. Anyway, I'll pass that
I mean,
around.
that comment is low rather than no calls.
Do you want me to put a notice in our notice board as well, just because
Yes.
people don't pass the
Is there
phone
a
box,
deadline?
but they've
Is
a
there
lot
a
of
bridge issue due?
not before that comes.
No, not before the deadline, unfortunately.
Do you want it on the Facebook groups?
Yes, I think we should publicise it. And circulate this. It's quite a tight turnaround, isn't it? By the 12th.
I think it was delayed over by holiday, the letter. So we just got it in. And then other planning matters, nothing particularly exciting to say. Hopefully the bridge is
I've got a slight update from Glenn Sanderson, which is sent through for the next edition of the bridge. Basically said that the section of railings that have been removed have now been repaired at the specialist repair, and are now waiting for English Heritage to check the quality of the work before they give the authority to, may not be English Heritage, but somebody has to check the quality of it. I think it was English Heritage, and then we'll take down the other railings once that's been confirmed.
it's quite
It is, it's because it's listed. That's why I have to do, but there is just a short note
They'll
from
get there.
nothing else under them.
No, as the local plan, there's a lot of dates. Again, I can put those on the website, even if you know, but I think there's going to be quite a lot of publicity. There was last time, wasn't there? I think.
Yes. Okay. Item 11, Bellway development.
I've spoken to Mark today because over the weekend I had a report, I think it was Friday evening actually, a visiting relative. So I think she was dog sitting for her daughter, had tripped. I think she has some other health issues and therefore is a little bit unsteady on her feet anyway, but she tripped on one of the exposed bits of pavement, or you know how they're doing all of the pavement works. It was the husband that came to report it to me, and he said there wasn't any signage or barriers to prevent you walking over that particular bit of exposed.
Fireworks.
I don't know exactly. He showed me some photographs. It just looked like he mentioned a manhole cover, but then when he showed me photographs, it looked just to me like, you know, unfinished, that rough underneath surface. I mean, it's quite uneven in places. I've reported to Bellway, and Mark's going to speak to the site manager about it tomorrow. And in terms of having a meet up with him, he said he's expecting them any moment to tell him that the pavements are finished, and then he thinks we should meet as soon as that. He says he's happy to meet earlier, but really he thinks that if we can do it as a snagging walk, spot any issues, that would be more
What does the
useful.
survey rough timing for that?
Well, because he said 2 or 3 weeks ago. I don't know.
I mean, they're all getting near.
We are very
Yeah,
close. I think he was sort of expecting it imminently, so he said maybe in 2 weeks' time.
But again, he's got to give us enough notice to.
He's trying to fit around us. He says Thursdays and Fridays are best for him. Do you want to just have a look at?
Did you send an email about the fencing?
I did. I didn't speak to him about that today actually, so I'll ring him again tomorrow. I'm sure he's cheery. To be fair, he rings me back when I miss him, so I don't think he minds. I mean, we could go for sort of the 19th or 20th, should be 2.5 weeks.
It should be finished by then.
Yeah.
Does anybody have a preference for the Thursday or the Friday?
I can only do Mondays and Tuesdays now, so
That's fine. He said he'll try and fit around if we don't Tuesday, Thursday or Friday. It's just that he gets a lot of off-site meetings on him, but like he's in development meetings and things on a Monday, so he says it's quite a stretch. And then Tuesday's obviously catching up after that. So
What's everyone's availability like?
Okay,
Oh,
I
well,
can do the
regular
19th or the 20th.
right, we'll let him go 19th then.
Yep. 19th. I guess again it'll be around about 10:30.
Yeah, should we do that? 10 o'clock, is that? And then we're done, aren't we?
Yeah.
So you let us know
Yeah, I'll email him.
when you have the first.
Is there anything else on that way?
No, just that the transfer, we are expecting a report on the transfer.
Which you mentioned earlier.
And somebody, which I put in an email about somewhere where one of the paths had been dug up and it hadn't, am I right, it hasn't had the top coat put back on?
I think they're going through and doing all that now, though, so it should be finished by this date, shouldn't it?
Well, if you speak to Mark and he says they're not going to be completed, that's going to be tight, we'll look to rearrange it for a different date.
Okay.
I think I missed the last meeting. Was there an update on the flooding pool just beyond the new road?
There was one of the meetings where, was this in terms of who has the access? Or who
the outside.
Oh, sorry, no.
It's been all worked on.
No, they were looking at this last.
He was getting an external company to come and look at it, wasn't he?
Yes.
Because his technical team hadn't been able to find any issues, so he said we'll get somebody else to do it. So
That's the last I've heard.
I think that he's still like, when we spoke to him, he was still waiting for that, wasn't he?
Yeah.
I'll ask him about that as well then.
And the
Can I just clarify?
grass, state of the
No
grass
issues
where
with
they
the
trench for the lighting cables.
Outside.
On the grass, yes.
Grass.
Yeah.
I mean, that was one of
That's
the things
one
that
of the
was
things
raised with them.
And I think that he has said that it will all be reinstated. It will be one of the last things that gets done because it will be after they've finished going backwards and forwards with everything else.
I've covered that.
Okay.
Thank you. Standing items, environment. The sewage outfall at Cokerfield, we've had no reports of any problems. That seems to be working quite well at the moment.
The hatch needs a special sort of key. And the man that came out to see the hatch doesn't have the correct key, and so they're requesting it, and somebody else is going to attend. And get these cheery little responses from somebody called Gareth from the Twitter feed. So, yeah. So the hatch should be screwed down at some point when they get the right key to use on the correct bolt.
Okay.
You would have thought that the people at the Centre County
Yeah.
check these things might happen with them, but
You might, but property terrain risk assessment, there's nothing to mention on that at this point.
you know, we said we were going to do a formal risk assessment, so
Yeah.
we need to get moved on to that for maybe next month.
Condition of properties, push shelters, so lots of repairs.
We've covered
The
that.
roofs
I
are
do need,
dangerous.
yeah, we do need
Oh,
a,
They are dangerous.
yeah, we need to do a specification because Bernie's one only good for the lease in statements, so we need a separate specification to send out enough tenders for that. So I will ask Bernie to do that for me.
But we need that as an emergency.
Just on the subject of the bush shelter again, I have had a verbal complaint
That one at the top.
about the bush shelter at the top, and particularly there's an elderly lady who visits every Wednesday, she's 94, and of course in all that rain,
Oh, yes.
she was absolutely soaked on 2 occasions. So the complaint is why has it taken so long?
I know.
Yeah.
Bush shelter at Lamington Lane.
are we going to just remove it for the time being?
Yes.
Is that just the resolution then, and in which
Yes.
case shall remove it? I think we did say that.
We did,
Take it off the agenda.
Yeah.
yes.
Were you not going to ask Roland about if you're going to put money in
They've said that they're not at the present, I think they were asking us how much and et cetera, and we've decided that, we didn't say that, I'm not making that comment.
No, we said that we would just leave it for the time being, because it wasn't dangerous or anything else. They didn't want to take them down,
No,
but they weren't willing to pay.
oh no, we did say we would ascertain if it's a safety risk, so we probably need to do that formally.
It's currently very overgrown.
I'll add that onto the list, I'm trying to go list and show it.
Parish Council notice board.
Okay, that's, do you want me to just take that off the time being, or?
Well, were we going to buy a new one? I mean, the Parish Council was given
Money for
a
it, and it's,
substantial sum to buy a new notice board.
It was, but wasn't it decided that there was actually nothing wrong with the one that was there?
Other than it's very shaky.
it is shaky.
Which one's actually shaky?
The one at 5860.
The one back?
The one
Outside the
outside
penthouse.
Oh, yeah.
Shaky as in it vibrates.
Yeah, it does.
Because
When I'm trying to put the things in, it does have a bit of movement. It's not, doesn't seem to be loosened, I just don't know, it's almost like wobbly. It doesn't seem loose in its fixings.
Right, so
I think it's just the posts have shrunk in the concrete.
so it just needs something doing with that to hold it in place.
And then lick of paint, because it looks a bit scruffy really.
But I know that when we were originally talking about it, there was concern that it wasn't staying shut, but
But
that,
that hasn't happened again since.
No, I mean, it was a violent wind that
Yeah.
caused it that time, wasn't it?
And it could just be that the cat wasn't fully across or something.
So what will the money put towards?
But it could just be ring fenced until we need a replacement in due course, could it, or?
that would make sense rather than just spend for the sake of spending.
It needs improving somewhere or another.
Yes, I mean, both of them need
The bottom one as
attention.
well needs painting as well.
They're not a very good advert for the village.
No, because the one at the bottom's got water leaking in at the back. of it.
Yes.
So in which case is maybe that the one that needs,
That's actually
Replacing.
new,
or is it
just,
new one?
yeah, probably just needs sealing properly.
No idea, I'm not aware of it.
No,
It's
there's-
looking at me.
No, it's just if you look
just
at the
because you
bottom
usually
corner,
have comments on the wood we're
at
in.
the bottom left-hand corner, I think you can see it's damp
Right.
in there, so it's something coming, I don't know how it's getting in.
Have we progressed any further in another one for up here? With Bellamy?
It's down
But we need to speak.
We said we were for a while.
It's the planning, he thinks we're gonna have to put a planning application in.
but we need him to confirm that so we can put that in for it.
Okay, so in terms of the other two, the existing notice boards, are we going to, can we assess them, do you want to come and me and you will have a look at them?
Yeah, we'll have
And decide and recommend a course of action, if that's happy.
So the seats and benches, I think, have all been treated now.
I think we have, yeah.
They're very good.
Just one thing that possibly comes under environmental properties, although it's not our property, the curve at number 9 Main Street has sunk.
Yeah, but if you look, it's now all marked out.
Oh no, it wasn't this morning.
It is now.
Oh, right.
It's been marked and you've.
It's been marked with areas, there's yellow paint on
Oh,
it
so the
Oh,
house
and
is
marked
obviously
out.
So
So
obviously,
it's obviously going to be repaired now.
yeah, right.
The damage was done when by the contractor who was doing the work for the electric company, where they moved some overhead cables to underground. And I believe it was a big truck when it put its leg
Put its
down,
leg down, yeah.
collapsed it, but there is something on it. I don't know when it's going to be done, it was painted up. and
As long as it's
everything.
in hand. that's
Yes,
it.
yeah.
And then the other one that I was talking about curbs that just made me think of it, you know the right little white fence, picket fence along the
Yes.
street here, there's a couple of those stones are a bit loose.
There's one, it's
Comes
actually
off.
loose, it does fall off now and again, a child could get you know, one of your kids to be in terms with us.
Who's, who would be County Council with that
That's
one as well?
county,
Mhm.
it's their footpaths.
I'll ask them if we could have a look at that.
How is that one you're
No, I was waiting still.
That's fine.
There's a dip in the pavement just below the Moleshoff Lane entrance, which has been there for several years and is getting a bit worse. And come the winter, it will fill up with water, it will freeze over, the children love skating on it, the elderly are at risk of breaking something.
Is it near the white fence?
It's outside the pump yard.
Yes, it is. I mean, that was
No,
repaired.
the one,
Do you know Main Street?
yes,
He means,
Yeah,
Not the bottom, it's not the pant at the pump.
It's the pump yard.
yes.
The bottom one's the pant.
There's
top
a gap.
one's the
it's
pump.
the entrance.
there's a
the
gap, it's where the little,
Moleshoff Lane.
terrace
that
goes
Yes.
The next
Yes,
entrance.
that's
So
what
that's
it's
the
called.
pump yard.
Pump yard.
That did sink and was repaired by the county
It's
2,
been
3 years.
investigated a number of times.
But it was, I think, last repaired a couple of years back, so we probably need to chase them to
Yes.
sort it again.
And if it would be proper to make the point that if they have been warned and if somebody does slip and break something on it, we will let
They
people
should
go
have.
and hold them liable, because it will be very dangerous.
I said it's been repaired a few times, but yeah. we
But
chase them
obviously,
again.
there is a reason why it's safe,
Why it
and
keeps
haven't been
collapsing.
able to find it. Which is another.
talking of sinkholes, Fiona, what's the one, that pothole on, is it Barnes Road?
South Lane,
South Lane.
it's starting again. They're not actually filling it, they're just covering it.
So they're not digging it out and
No,
making it
it's,
solid underneath.
there's a hole underneath, and they're just filling the top where they should be filling it with something, and
You should
then,
be digging it out,
yeah,
compacted
and
it.
it's quite dangerous actually, again.
So again, that's another one that we raise with them. And obviously they're all urgent, these ones. Is there anything else on the environment?
No, I think that was.
Okay, just check.
Sorry.
No, that's fine.
Just,
No, makes sense. The allotments. Sorry? Yeah, I mean, we've got, obviously, I've got a copy of it here, a copy of the report, which thank you very much for doing. I've got it here somewhere. I think the trouble is because we've just got it, people haven't had a chance to really
I
digest.
just wondered that, because I did wonder as far, is it worth sending the whole lot round Robin with the photographs and everything?
Yeah, I mean, I've looked at it, I think we should have it on the agenda for the next meeting. What I was only going to mention was that,
Should I, do you want me to leave or what? That's an allotment hole.
We've only this the moles off, so I think.
Yeah,
It's
it's
all-
just-
So
it's
you
fine.
know those are the names. We haven't been got up yet.
there were a couple of, there were a couple of issues on there regarding health and safety or whatever, but they seem to have been resolved, or that's
Have
the
you
information.
removed?
The corrosive substances have been addressed with care, and that has been complied
Well, you
with
see,
a check.
well, I gave him a copy of it just again, because I wasn't sure if I'd delivered it or not, because I hadn't heard. And I thought, well, what if I didn't, but yes.
They have been removed, yeah.
So I think
Yes.
the critical ones have been done.
It's been done,
So I think if we get this, everyone can have it on the agenda for the next time.
yes,
Is
yes.
that everyone happy with that?
I do apologise, but I haven't got out
It's
of
No, that's absolutely fine. I think it's a lot of really good work and the photos really help.
Yes, yes, it gives a better,
in spite of all your problems.
yes, but just give a better idea of just what is
Yeah.
going on, yeah.
So I think if we have it on the agenda for the next time, if everyone's agreeable.
What I'll do is, once you've got that printed out, I'll then send an email around, and anybody that wants the hard copy to just ask you for it, and then you're not sending it round if people are
Yeah,
happy to put it on the screen.
yeah. The other thing, can you send Fiona and I a copy of the actual
Agreement.
named allotments so we can do the comparison with our record?
Yeah.
Yeah,
The list, yeah.
yeah. as you know, it's proposed that anybody in future now is just to be referred to by number, not by name. I have got one other question which has nothing to do with that report, but it was in a general conversation, comment was passed about the same allotment, some work needing doing on the boundary fence, namely the wiring that is in to stop the rabbits getting in. I know as part of our tenancy agreement, it is in there that as part of the agreement that will maintain good order and unobstructed the fences and gates. However, have we got an obligation actually to meet halfway in perhaps meeting costs of repair of the fence, of the boundary fence? It's the boundary fence.
So maybe that should be clear in the agreement then.
This was carried over from the old ones,
Yes.
the old tenancy agreements.
But then you think, well, actually the boundary fence is ours.
A boundary, is it a boundary fence, or is it a rabbit fence, or is it a combination?
It's both.
It's a combination.
But does their allotment run all the way up, or is there a path between where they stop growing and the fence?
There's a gap.
Because I would say that then the fence is ours, because I would say...
The fence is ours, it was put up by Peter Brown.
But as in, I mean, if maintained in good and unobstructed, the fences and gates form part of the allotment garden, it doesn't form part of their garden if it's the other side of the path.
There's a gap, there's a path between the last allotment
That's what I mean.
and then there's gaps.
One of the reasons of asking that is because with the present issues, we have an interruption of that boundary fence where a new gate has been put in. So how can you stop that if it's not considered open?
I would say, when you look at the maps of them, so their map, well that's Reclamation, that's no use, isn't it? So it doesn't show us clearly on that, but on the Rec Lane one, the squares are inside the external boundary, if you see what I mean.
Yeah.
And there's a path, effectively like a small gap all the way around the outside. And they only get that dotted line
As there.
so I think anything within that would be their fence. Because it says fences and gates forming part of the allotment garden. It's not their allotment garden if it's the other side of the path. So I think we have a right to we have a duty to maintain it, but also to deal with any issues arising in it.
Yeah. Because the other thing is, it's like this side of the fence, are we leasing that land likewise? You know, it's like on a hill.
I'm trying to think exactly which area of land we lease now. We always say we lease
I
a
think
lot.
this all needs to be looked at for the next
Yes.
meeting so that we can do it properly. But
So I have said to that person, don't do anything until I clarify with the police.
I can put that in writing if you want.
It's just, it's on an issue with the person about repairing the fence. It's just
To just have to leave it as is until we
until yes, make a decision.
Okay.
Okay.
and then I've put on clarification of rule N, which currently is, I've had lots of people sign and this probably does apply to you, Lindsay, so I'll explain it and then I'll explain it and then Lindsay can step out of it. So our rule M says, be responsible for ensuring that any person present in the allotment garden, with or without permission, does not suffer personal injury or damage to their property. I've had one allotment holder come back and query that to say, should it say, be responsible for taking all reasonable steps to ensure any person Because at the moment we don't say any reasonable steps, we just say you've got to be responsible for ensuring there's no injury.
Which is one of the issues that comes up with the risk assessment we did. A, the corrosive substances, B, glass. Which is
And those
another
would be,
issue.
they would be covered by reasonable steps though. So, yeah, so whether it should say, at the moment it says, be responsible for ensuring that any person present, and the resident in question, the allotment holder in question said to me, I can't ensure definitely that nobody ever is injured on my allotment if they're there without my permission. What I can do is take reasonable steps to ensure that there's nothing unsafe. So she was saying that it should, and I said I thought that was what had been intended by that, that I would check. So would people be happy if I was to amend the allotment agreements to say, do you want me to put this on the agenda for next time as well?
Yes.
And put in reasonable steps.
But I'll tell her that we are amending it in the
Yeah.
meantime, that we'll be left in due course. Yeah.
Thank you. Does make sense. Right, item 14, correspondence not addressed anywhere else on the agenda. CV Penrose.
Okay, so going through these, we've had a number of emails about the access down to the recreation lane, our review of the same, the closed meeting that we held, and the fact that as a public footpath it's an offence to drive a vehicle down it without lawful authority to do so. As you all know, it's ongoing. We've had our meeting which we looked at these issues.
Yeah.
Would it be appropriate to respond to say that these issues are being considered and written response will be given in due course once there's a conclusion reached?
Because until we've done that, we can't have a response. Does everyone agree with that? Yeah. Thank you.
B for July, declaring B and C are just items that have been raised by a resident regarding Councillor Hood's declaration of interest form and things that they felt should be included upon it. That's been referred to Tony, and I have spoken with the elections officer as well about that, so that's in hand.
Okay.
D, that's an advertisement as far as we can gather. It's a local company called Almcom who do broadband services. They can provide more information if we want. I wasn't sure whether that was something that was relevant or whether it was just.
I did see some information, but I can't remember where it was now.
I mean, I don't know whether the parish council itself doesn't
We
obtain
don't.
any broadband services, so
It's there, it's an information.
this one, E, is a bit odd. There's currently a review of polling districts underway, and I got sent an email asking for our comments, but it didn't have anything to comment upon. So I emailed back and asked if they were just seeking general comments at this stage or whether there was a specific proposal yet, because it seemed to suggest that there will be proposals published. There's a link to as part of their the MCC website. Again, it doesn't seem like there's very much information there that's specific that we would want us to. So I've asked for clarification if something comes back. It looks like this was last carried out in 2015, a review. I think it's got to do with accessibility and ensuring people can reach a polling district, a polling station on their day, etc.
Or they can get a postal vote.
But I'll keep chasing that because obviously there'll be a deadline on it. F, about the cemetery financial paperwork, this was relating to the audit, and we've got again the same at H, about audit financial paperwork, and then I, a copy of the challenge to the external auditors. I've spoken to the external auditors, and they still haven't produced their response from last year. That isn't expected. When did I tell you? It was 2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago.
Yeah, a week ago, so I said 3 weeks in that. So 2 more weeks is when they told me that they would hope to have it back to us. And I did speak to them about the fact that we had obviously had this challenge this year, and they said that they were happy for us to look at that once we've received the response from last year.
What about Northumberland Day 2020?
Northumberland Day 2020 is...
That similar to the events NCC ran on Great Northumberland area?
We love parishes in the springtime. The big Northumberland Day Flag Parish Challenge. They're sending it out now to try and get people involved. It's a relay between parishes and OWI, or other community groups within the village who sign up to take part. You pass the flag, it's a nice big flag saying, show pride in your county, Northumberland Day. Parish 1 is given the relay will start in spring 2020, at one end of the county, end at the other. Do we want to be involved? Do you want me to email you the stuff?
Yeah, please send it around and have a look at it.
Nice to read it.
Yes. And what I want to say no in the truth is
Yeah, we need to
I mean,
know more about
all
it.
we have to do, what you would end up doing is, I think we would be tasked with getting to the next parish in the relay by the most innovative means possible.
By the most innovative.
Yeah, while also creating an interesting animated show-stopping photo of the flag in the parish.
Yeah. Okay.
just what we want.
Yeah.
It's their version of the Olympic torch relay.
Okay.
So H and I, that's all sort of things. J, reference book, we've been sent an email by a lovely gentleman at the Western Front Association, David Thompson, their treasurer. It's the culmination of their ambitious 6-year project to deliver an accessible research resource relating to First World War fatalities amongst men from the area, when David Thompson's book, Tribute to the Falling, is published. It won't be available for commercial sale. Complimentary copies are to be distributed to target audiences, including local authorities subject to availability. Would the parish council like a copy of the book if we can use and house it? And it does sound like it would be quite interesting. There's some information here, but I just don't know whether we would have somewhere suitable that could.
Probably the History Society will take one, and they'll no doubt have the similar letter.
Should I check that they have, because we could potentially
Yes,
we could potentially own it and
give
do
it
a
storage.
store
library,
right
they
there.
have a
Yeah.
library of books.
Books, so that would
Yes.
probably be the ideal solution.
K, regarding access by recreation lanes, all the same issues, and I don't think we can deal with them until
We have a solution.
solve it. L, able community care, free, do not knock door stickers for vulnerable or elderly people. Again, should we pass that too? Is it,
Well, there are some in the portrait, the village
There's
hall.
some arrived, I think.
Yes, and
So that's
have
been sent.
themselves. Quite a lot of people around the village do have them on their door or on their window.
So we don't need any, no
I
more
don't think
this.
so.
We're good enough. Fair enough.
This is a bit, there's a lot of attachments with this next email. This is information changes to licensing for people who are non-mains. And they're just asking for help getting it out to members of the parish that may be affected, that may not see this other way. So anyone that has previously had an exempt non-mains supply of water, which may now require a licence, and they've got a limited time to apply. So I thought I'll put that again maybe around the Facebook group and on the notice board.
Yes.
About the closed session that we had, it was a challenge about the fact that we were excluding the public, but we're happy that it was confidential information that was being discussed.
Precisely.
That was a request to attend from an interested party, but it wasn't just related to them,
Yes.
so we couldn't allow them to attend. And then a request to display a Walk of Hope poster from the bridge in the research. When I get quite a few of these requests, I don't know whether, I mean, the community notice board is quite full all the time, and I mean, we did have that little one in there, but it's sort of tucked away, I don't know.
We don't do anything with that one.
No. Is there anywhere else we can display them?
Maybe I could just put them on the Facebook page and then,
Yes. Yes,
on
the
notice
front
board.
porch of the hall when you're in the morning with the.
Do I need to speak to the,
Well, I think if there's room, it'll be all right, I should think.
I'll speak to the village hall
Right.
about whether maybe they could, there could be somewhere more.
Thank you. Is that all correspondence? Right. Item 15, finance.
I'm very apologetic, but I haven't printed out any spare copies of this, so I do not, well I did, but I don't have it picked them up. So I need it out. I am working on a reformatted one, it's just taking me longer than I thought because it's not doing what I wanted to do.
Has everyone read the financial summary? Does anyone have any questions? No. Right. Case, can I ask, is everyone happy to approve of the summary? All those in favour?
Yeah.
Thank you. Receipts.
So I have to give myself on the list.
There you go.
Well, just as on there, so we've got quite a few fees in this one.
It's a really one across the recreation field.
So that's an annual payment.
This is just me being curious. The cemetery fees listed as two separate items because they're two separate.
Two separate
Rather than a talk, you've done it. Yeah, that's fair enough. Okay. And payments for approval?
As per the
Sheet.
list, yeah. So there's a couple of salaries from me, because I didn't put mine through in July without having the meeting. One for Peter for August. Yeah.
Yeah.
Guest tarts, just parts for I think it's a strimmer part.
Right.
Village hall fees, and then stationery. My question on stationery was the bits, do you want me to, the bits that the neighbourhood plan used for the village fair, do you want that set against
Yeah.
the neighbourhood plan budget and itemised?
I think it should be, so then we have a true picture of any costs and
And
can
then
account for
what
it.
yeah.
And the other ones will be online for us to approve.
Yeah, and then John Hood Landscaping sent his in as well.
Right. So is everyone happy with those payments? Okay, thank you. We'll put them online now and get them through. Right. Review of policies.
I've left it on, but we don't have any specific ones to consider this evening.
When's the next meeting?
We need to,
I know we're going to start again sometime in September.
yes,
I can't remember.
I'm happy to carry on where we left off.
We need to check with
Yes.
Yeah. For availability.
I'll leave now, shall I?
Yeah, please. And we'll get that done.
Because we still have quite a lot of.
Work through. Urgent items. Do we have any urgent items?
Yes.
Okay. Little list of them or big list?
No, short and sweet.
Excellent.
My son and grandson went to the rec park and to the play park in the rec field, and in the back were some gravel boards that had become detached from their posts and had 4-inch nails at ankle level sticking out.
Whereabouts was this one?
Round the back.
It's when you
Close to
climb
the
up
hedge.
above the slide, or in
Yes.
Right.
So we summarily ripped them off and threw them over the hedge.
Okay.
And I think there are others in approaching that state.
Has this not been picked up by the rec field committee?
I think it's the weather this summer's been, because they were slightly exposed, the top lip of them is quite exposed with like the gravel that they're keeping back wasn't at the top, so I think it's just possibly just.
The posts have rotted.
Yeah.
The posts have rotted, leaving the boards
Exposed with the layers.
a slight kick from a wandering child, and there they are.
I thought we were talking about redoing that whole wall back
fence area.
Because there's holes and all kinds of.
This is in the wire fence.
Do you want me to, this is it's like little short planks
Yeah.
set into the ground to keep basically erosion planks, aren't they? Is that what you mean?
I'm not quite sure what they were originally, but I mean, they're quite substantial planks, and more than just will keep the gravel in place. Not quite sure what the original function.
I mean, it's obviously a very recent thing, otherwise Ross would have picked it up, wouldn't they?
Yeah, it was only possible.
On the ground. They're taking no notice of the state of the fence and hedge, have they?
But that's actually in the play area, isn't it? So I would have thought we would have spotted it.
Really, I would like to
Well,
think so.
we're due a rec meeting, we need to have a rec meeting.
It's got to be the rec committee.
Can I pass it to them
Yes,
and ask them
please.
to make a decision?
But we need to make sure that it's safe in the meantime. That is the key. We need to get that checked first.
Is it, you think there's more coming away, is it doesn't need
They all the boards and posts need,
removing? Or
well, a safety check.
Is it worth, depending on what we find, asking Peter Brown to have a look at it? Because he does a lot of the small repairs for us anyway, and fencing and other things. I'm just
Oh, yes.
if a way of getting things done quickly.
Did the commission do a regular risk assessment or something?
yeah, we've done
Yeah.
that and
Probably who's
Richard got, I've got them back now, Richard, I think it was Richard Barnes did the August one. And so they would get picked up by somebody in September, but we haven't seen that yet.
But we need to make
Right,
sure
so-
that they're not dangerous. It's a
Because the posts are rotting, the nails have got less
Yeah.
and less to secure the
Yeah.
board.
Can they just be removed? Well,
Yes.
Yeah.
Have they all been, we need to remove more of them?
I think they, sometimes you go around and, well, anybody else, anyone of us can go around and give them a kick and see if they're going to come loose.
Well volunteered, remove the boards.
Thank you, Lindsay. Give me a shout if you need a hand in that.
I've got Alice to test them
Sure.
down.
Yeah.
Okay. To check. I'll give you those.
Any other urgent items?
You covered? I'm just going to mention it, but
Yeah, the storage cupboard that we have behind the stage, it's wondered whether we need everything in it.
Well, I mean, I know regularly the materials archived and sent off.
it's not even that, it's more as like, for example, I'll do it, what I've suggested to Marion is that I think I will do an inventory of what's in there. For example, there's a comb binder machine.
Oh, right.
That we had for something donkeys years ago. Fine, it's not doing any harm. I don't think we really want
And there's a lot of sort of like, things that have obviously been, like materials that have been handed out, there's copies of the older plans and things like that in there. So if I did an inventory and then we could decide
What we keep, what we dispose of. I mean, I guess as long as we had one or even two copies of any of the old things just for reference.
And I was saying that, if there's stuff that needs to be kept or that we think we might want to refer back to, but actually don't need to physically to the original, I can just scan, it's a bit of a faff, but could scan, potentially just have electronic copies of some of the stuff.
Well, once you've done the survey, that is
just been trying to have a.
No, that makes sense, yeah. That makes a lot of sense.
So I'll email them and say that we're
Looking into it.
looking into it.
Yeah, that's absolutely fine.
Right.
But it makes sense.
And then I'll send an inventory around, have a go at it tomorrow, top us on.
Yeah.
What have you got for us?
John Stewart's is dog following on the football pitch again.
And I do report it, Fiona, but
I must admit, I haven't seen much of it recently.
Well, he had.
There's a lot around the village.
Oh, no, there's one around the village.
Yes.
On the subject of Trevor Thorne, how often is he supposed to come? I know we've had this discussion a while ago because he's appeared and it wasn't for very long
And then he disappeared again.
and then he's disappeared again.
I don't know if there's anything set in stone about
Because all
frequency.
these things that we need sorted,
Are Trevor related?
yeah, then I mean,
well, I said I'll do a letter and
it's, I mean, out of sight, out of mind, I think.
If I catch him in the village again,
We need some answers to what
yes.
he was told the last time, so when he does come, he is going to answer, not just talk over the subjects we've brought up.
Well, that's why Claire put everything in writing to him and then
Yes.
saying we need the answers to this and we need them by.
And I mean, it's all very well, as we know, he says he promises to do things, but he's not keeping his promise.
There's nothing happening.
If I do a letter to, I mean, because what I'd said earlier in the meeting wasn't it, was I will do a letter to say, you know, I've tried to get in contact with him, I've had nothing back. These are the outstanding issues that we need resolving. Do you want me to copy it to anybody else? Is there somebody that he would hold an account that
He's accountable to. I don't think there is.
Just the electors.
is it worth copying it to, you know, Anne-Marie or something? I mean, is it something that she would be interested in?
I don't think, I mean, she's obviously interested in things to do with surgery and things like that, but I just don't think it's the general
Is
day-to-day.
Anne-Marie like sort of,
She's the MP,
right then?
but she's not connected
She's
to,
not county council.
nothing to do with
Well,
county
I was going to
council.
say, can you not mention it now he's not coming? Is there somebody who can mention it, that we're not getting things done?
And when you see on Facebook other county councillors not far away from here do a colossal amount
Sure,
and
they're
keep the
not.
public up to date.
Did, well, mentioned Glenn, had given us some
It might
information.
Glenn does
It's what it is.
there's a lot
It's
of reasons.
fantastic.
Yes.
Mhm.
But then again, I don't think I think it's his sole job where the likes of Trevor has a full-time job and it's just about impossible to do two things.
It is, but
But when you
if
take
he's-
this position
That's
on,
right.
you've got to think of
you've got
these
to have,
things.
you've got to be prepared to put in the, I think if Claire writes to him and says, we need these answers, we need him either at the next council meeting or his written responses
Yes.
for the next council meeting. So it's a very specific deadline, effectively he's got 4 weeks.
And if he sends an email of just a chit chat about what we've discussed, that's.
No, we
and
want definitely,
answers. I would write back and say, no, we want answers.
and I'll say if I see one, choose as well. Thank you, Fiona. Anything else?
Yeah,
I'm sorry, but no.
No? Lindsay, yeah.
it actually gone so long, I remember something.
Oh, well, there you go.
There was an article in one of the magazines that came through about fly tipping, and any customer using a contractor that then subsequently fly tips, the originator is liable to a fine up to £400. It seems that there are people in the village who are wittingly or unwittingly using somebody local that fly tips. Could we publicise the dangers?
So just make
Either
sure I'm clear. So a customer can be fined £450 for fly tipping by a contractor that they
Yes.
engaged.
It would be worth getting the actual copy of the legislation and the exact rules and in the bridge.
because in one of the recently circulated.
Yeah, so if we check that through and then actually put that into the bridge, that would be a good way to put the plans out. Thank you, Lindsay. Anybody else have any other urgent items? No? Thank you. Any items for the next agenda that we haven't already mentioned?
Trevor.
Anything else apart from? In that case, at 8:45, the meeting closed. Look forward to seeing everybody on Monday the 7th.